The overnight message from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has sent a jolt through Middle Eastern diplomacy and international politics. In a video posted on his official Telegram channel, Netanyahu said with striking clarity that he did not agree to the creation of a Palestinian state during his recent talks at the White House with United States President Donald Trump. The statement, delivered in Hebrew but quickly translated and broadcast around the world, emphasized that the idea of Palestinian statehood was never included in the discussions or in any written agreement. Netanyahu's words were unequivocal. Israel will, in his phrasing, strongly oppose a Palestinian state. He argued that such a move under present conditions would offer what he called a huge prize to terrorism and would endanger the security of the State of Israel. The Prime Minister cited President Trump's own comments during the White House meeting, noting that Trump, too, had recognized that pushing forward with Palestinian statehood in the current volatile environment could empower militant groups such as Hamas and destabilize Israel's already fragile security landscape. The message was not merely a clarification of Israel's negotiating position, it was a pointed political signal. Netanyahu wanted to make it absolutely clear to both domestic and international audiences that the vision of a Palestinian state, long seen by much of the world as the foundation of a future peace deal, was, in his view, not on the table. This marked a stark departure from decades of conventional wisdom surrounding peace efforts in the region. Journalists and analysts were quick to note that Netanyahu's video appeared aimed as much at his domestic audience as at the global community. By using his personal Telegram channel rather than a formal press conference, Netanyahu underscored that his message was directed straight to the Israeli public and to his political base. The tone was firm, even defiant, reflecting a leader determined to reinforce his long-standing position that concessions on Palestinian statehood could compromise Israel's security and future. In his remarks, Netanyahu stressed that Israel's resistance to a Palestinian state is not an act of defiance against peace itself, but rather, in his view, a necessary safeguard. He argued that granting statehood now, in the aftermath of years of violence and amid the continuing threat posed by Hamas, would embolden militants rather than foster stability. For Netanyahu, the lesson of past agreements and ceasefires is that premature concessions often bring more conflict rather than less. The reference to President Trump's alignment on this point was particularly striking. For decades, US administrations of both major political parties had expressed at least rhetorical support for a two-state solution as a framework for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Netanyahu's statement, and his claim that Trump explicitly agreed, signaled a shift away from that long-standing position, at least under the current US leadership. According to aides familiar with the discussions, Trump reportedly told Netanyahu during their White House meeting that he saw no path forward for a Palestinian state under present conditions. The US president was said to have described such a move as rewarding extremism and undermining Israel's right to security. These private assurances, now made public through Netanyahu's own comments, suggest a deepening policy alignment between the two leaders. The timing of Netanyahu's declaration also carried political weight. Coming just a day after his White House meeting, it appeared to preempt criticism from opposition parties in Israel and from international actors who might have hoped that the summit signaled a new push for a negotiated two-state settlement. By going public so quickly, Netanyahu sought to frame the outcome of the talks on his own terms before rivals or foreign governments could shape the narrative. Reactions within Israel were swift and polarized. Supporters of the Prime Minister praised his firmness, saying it reflected a realistic appraisal of the threats Israel faces and a refusal to repeat what they see as the mistakes of previous peace initiatives. They argue that Israel's withdrawal from Gaza in 2005, followed by the rise of Hamas and repeated cycles of conflict, proves that territorial concessions and premature recognition of Palestinian authority can lead to more, not less, violence. Critics, however, warned that Netanyahu's stance risks entrenching the conflict for generations. Opposition figures accused the Prime Minister of shutting the door on diplomacy and ignoring the aspirations of millions of Palestinians who seek statehood as part of a just and lasting peace. Human rights advocates argued that dismissing the possibility of Palestinian statehood perpetuates occupation and deepens humanitarian suffering in Gaza and the West Bank. The international reaction has been just as divided. Some Arab governments that have cautiously developed ties with Israel in recent years particularly under the Abraham Accords, have refrained from immediate public comment, but diplomats privately expressed concern that Netanyahu's statement could make it harder to advance regional cooperation. European allies of the United States, many of whom continue to endorse a two-state solution, voiced disappointment, urging both sides to return to negotiations that include Palestinian sovereignty as a goal. In Washington, the White House offered only a brief statement confirming that security considerations had been a central topic of discussion between the two leaders. Officials stopped short of endorsing Netanyahu's rejection of Palestinian statehood, but also did not contradict his account of Trump's remarks. The careful wording reflects the administration's desire to maintain close ties with Israel while managing diplomatic fallout with Arab partners. The ripple effects of Netanyahu's declaration were felt in Palestinian territories as well. Leaders of the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah condemned the statement as proof that Israel's current government has no intention of pursuing genuine peace. Hamas leaders in Gaza, meanwhile, used the remarks to bolster their argument that negotiations with Israel are futile, further complicating efforts by international mediators to encourage dialogue. For many in the region, the statement underscored the stark choices facing all parties. Should diplomacy continue to aim for a two-state settlement despite repeated setbacks, or is the conflict entering a new phase in which security, containment and deterrence become the dominant priorities? Netanyahu's position suggests that, for the foreseeable future, the Israeli government sees the latter approach as the only viable path. As debate over the declaration intensifies, analysts point out that Netanyahu's message also plays to a broader geopolitical context. With shifting alliances in the Middle East, ongoing conflicts in neighboring countries, and great power rivalries influencing regional dynamics, both Israel and the United States appear to be recalibrating their priorities. Security guarantees, counter-terrorism, and the containment of Iranian influence seem to be taking precedence over traditional peace process formulas. In Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, political commentators noted that the Prime Minister's Telegram video also served as a signal to his coalition partners and rivals alike. Facing domestic political pressures and ongoing legal challenges, Netanyahu has sought to consolidate his standing by projecting strength on issues of national security. His latest remarks on Palestinian statehood may resonate strongly with right-leaning voters who have long opposed concessions they believe would weaken Israel's strategic position. Internationally, the declaration is expected to influence upcoming diplomatic gatherings, including meetings at the United Nations, where resolutions concerning the Israeli-Palestinian conflict often spark intense debate. Observers say Netanyahu's unequivocal rejection of Palestinian statehood could shape the positions of other countries and alter the tone of future discussions, particularly among nations seeking to mediate or sponsor peace initiatives. The broader question now confronting diplomats and analysts alike is whether this alignment between Israel's leadership and the current US administration represents a temporary political convergence or a more lasting shift in the framework of Middle East peace efforts. If the latter, it could redefine expectations not just in the region but in global forums that have traditionally endorsed the two-state vision. As the world digests the implications of Netanyahu's words, it is clear that the debate over Palestinian statehood, long a central element of peace negotiations, has entered a new phase. The Israeli leader's insistence that statehood is not only off the table but also a threat to national security reflects a hardening of positions that may shape the conflict's trajectory for years to come. For the time being, both Netanyahu and Trump appear to be signaling that security and counter-terrorism will dominate their approach to the Israeli-Palestinian issue, with less emphasis on political settlements or state building. That message, broadcast first through a social media video rather than formal diplomatic channels, captures the new political realities of a conflict that remains at the heart of Middle Eastern and international affairs. And so the statement from Jerusalem, only a few words in a late-night video clip, reverberates far beyond Israel's borders, adding a new chapter to a conflict whose resolution has eluded generations of leaders and continues to challenge the world's hopes for a just and lasting peace. Absolutely not, and it is not written in the agreement, but one thing was made clear. We will strongly oppose a Palestinian state. President Trump also said this. He said he understands it. He also made it clear that such a move would grant a huge prize to terrorism and endanger the state of Israel, and of course we do not agree to that.